Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leyland brothers. Whatever it is that you want to see, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. No matter whatever that happens to be, ask the Leyland brothers. Come on, me in and join in the fun. Travel all over Australia.
When this series first started, we asked you to let us know what you wanted to see on television, and there's been no shortage of requests. This week we're going to take you to 3 different places as a result of that. Firstly, we're going to Ballarat in Victoria to take a look at a grand old home, an historic mansion in fact.
Then we're going to northeastern Tasmania, where we're going to see a man who mines tin single-handed, right out in the bush, up here at Gladstone.
And finally, we're going to take a look at a very unusual aspect of Australian wildlife. It's a snake, a tiger snake, but not just an ordinary tiger snake, an albino tiger snake. And that story comes from Warrnambool in Victoria.
We're a few kilometres from Gladstone in northeastern Tasmania, and this track leads to a tin mine. Mrs. Lefevre of Winnaleah, Tasmania wrote, "Tin mining has played a big part in the history of northeastern Tasmania. Now there are only a few remaining mines in operation, and one that you might be interested in filming is run single-handed by a man who has been tin mining all his life. The mine you're talking about, Mrs. Lefevre, is run by Ron Laurie, and his mine's only a few kilometres down this track."
Ron Laurie uses his bulldozer to clear the bush away before he dozes the tin-bearing dirt over a bank to be broken up by a high-pressure water jet. These alluvial deposits were washed down from the granite belt which once ran across the northeast corner of Tasmania. With the force of a fire hose, the water smashes the clayey soil into a liquefied soup of mud and tin.
Oh, it breaks up the hard dirt, the clay lumps, and gets the sand and the tin out of it, you know. It's the job of the pressure to break the dirt.
Removing the larger stones from the slurry is a constant job for Ron, who works alone.
Oh, just pounding a bit off there to show you what tin's coming out of it. It's not bad when you get that much. It's pretty good ground, really. You know, go about 3 or 4 pounds to the yard after the top's pushed off it. That's it.
A trench dug in the soil directs the tin-laden water to the mouth of a large suction pump. Utilising old bulldozer engines to run the pumps, Ron has saved a lot of money on equipment. All this water is recycled from this holding pond, which Ron dug with his own bulldozer. A special filter to stop the rocks from going into the sluice boxes sometimes needs a bit of help. This simple grill separates the rocks from the tin-bearing material. This long trough separates the alluvial tin from the dirt. As the water flows over baffles in the trough, the tin settles to the bottom, allowing the lighter dirt and sand to be carried away. The last baffle catches the most tin, and Ron now runs clear water over the baffle to wash away the final layer of dirt. Shoveling the sediment like this lifts the dirt and allows it to wash away, leaving the heavier tin on the bottom.
Sand on there. Dirt.
The black stuff's the tin.
Yeah, the black stuff's the tin. All this white sand there running away. Yeah, that's nearly clean. Beautiful graded tin, it cleans very easily. It's just about ready to throw out now. You going to bag it for me, Dave? You can put that in the bag.
Ron's son David likes to help Dad during the school holidays. He bags the tin for his father. In the late 19th century, Australia produced 25% of the world's tin needs. In the 1970s, it produced only 0.25%.
We put in about 15 tins to the bag, and that's 100 weight. Dad, get that chopped off. That's about enough, isn't it? That one didn't go too well. We usually put 2 round it in case one breaks, just a safety measure. And it's ready to go to Sydney now.
Ron, how long have you been tin mining here?
In the same area for the last 30 odd years, 33 years.
The whole mine you've got now is just a one-man operation. Is there any reason for that?
Yeah, well, I work it on my own because I just find that I'm not in a position to employ men. I'm only working on a small scale. There's big reserves up ahead there.
That's on your lease?
Oh, yes, I've got between 300 and 400 acres. That'd be about $4 million worth, I suppose, in reserves. But I'm only working it, as you can see, in a very small way.
But you can't get that out without more money sunk into it?
Oh, no, it needs a few thousand putting into it, you know, to get it on a bigger scale.
Then you could get out the 4 million?
Oh, yes, get it out quickly then.
You could?
It could be got out in just, a few years.
Could it?
As it is, I won't get it out in a lifetime.
About how many bags of tin would you get out in a 12-month period?
Well, in the last 4 months, I've had about 44, worth about $7,000, I suppose. Something like that.
If you work it properly, there's good money in it then?
Oh, yes, but that's I've only worked part-time about 3 weeks, I suppose, 3-4 weeks in that time.
We can put that in the ute now and take it in?
Yes, we'll put it in the ute and I'll take it home, put it on the train on Monday. They're a bit heavy.
The tin from Ron Laurie's one-man mine is going to Sydney to be smelted. It then could be used in tin plating, solder, pewterware, electrical equipment, or in pigments for paints or plastics, and in dry cell batteries.
During the making of our series so far, we've been frequently asked to show an historic home, a mansion of one kind or another. Australia seems to have quite a lot of them, actually. But it wasn't until we came to Ballarat and saw Kalani that we decided that this would certainly be the one that we would show you. We were asked to see this place by Mrs. Pat Hart from Ballarat, who said that if ever you're in Ballarat, you shouldn't ever go through without seeing Kalani. It's certainly a most impressive home. Well, we agree with Mrs. Hart. It is indeed an impressive home, and we're now going to go inside and meet the owners, Mr. and Mrs. Ellis. Although Kalani is a private home, it is of such interest to students of architecture and lovers of history that its present owners, Mr. and Mrs. Ellis, intend to open it for inspection by anyone who would like to see how grand 19th century living could be for the privileged few.
Well, the place, we understand, took approximately 3 years to build in the late 19th century.
A grand old home like this should have a ghost. Does it have one?
Yes, they say it does. In fact, I think I heard it one night. It was about a man who first lived here in an old bush hut just on the first acre.
He was the caretaker, and today rides a ghostly white horse in the dead of night. Mrs. Tassie Ellis says she was terrified for 2 hours one night by the sounds of Kalani's ghost. Less spine-chilling but more tangible aspects of interest are the magnificent door arches and architraves, displaying first-class workmanship. Using money left to him by his uncle, a successful gold mining magnate in Ballarat, the builder, Thomas Lachlan, spared no expense with the building. The mahogany staircase is said to be the best of its kind in the district, and was carved, along with all the other woodwork, by craftsmen from Europe who worked on the fixtures for 3 years from 1893. Many of the materials were imported, like the Italian marble fireplaces, one in every room, and the impressive stained glass windows of the entrance hall. Thomas Lachlan was no less lavish in his spending on the outside of the mansion. The very best Italian tiles were imported for the expansive veranda. English slate was used on the roof of not only the house, but the outhouses, gardener's cottage and the stables. Kalani seems enormously spacious by today's standards, but thankfully it is well preserved for a building approaching the century mark and offers a worthwhile visit to anyone passing by Ballarat. A chance to ponder on the motivation of the man who built it. Not only does the mansion look like a transplant from England, but the garden also is full of English shrubs and trees. When most people go camping, one of the things they fear is running into a snake. But in reality, that's not a very strong possibility. In fact, in all the travelling we've done, I think we've only encountered about 3 or 4. But nevertheless, people are interested in snakes, interested enough for reptile parks to now be established in all states of Australia. And today we've come to the Oasis Reptile Park at Warrnambool to see probably the world's rarest snake. And the reason was a letter from Mrs. Dart in Broken Hill, New South Wales. She writes, "I've heard that at a reptile park in Warrnambool there is an albino snake in captivity. Is this true? Is it a real albino, or is it just a light-coloured snake?" Well, Mrs. Dart, for the answers we're going to speak now with Barry Searle, who owns and operates the park. Barry, that's the snake in question you've got there, isn't it?
Yes, that's it.
And is it a true albino?
Yes, it is a true albino, as you can see when we get it out in a moment. It's a tiger snake.
Tiger snake? Oh,
you can see it has pink eyes and pink tongue. And the colour of it is white with the apricot bands on it. It's a very rare reptile. Up till the time I got this one, which was just over 2.5 years ago, I had never seen one. Very few herpetologists have ever seen one. And in the last 3 or 4 weeks I've been lucky enough to obtain another one.
So you actually have 2 albinos?
I have 2 albinos, yes.
And are albinos rare in the reptile world?
Well, probably they're not as rare as most people would imagine, but because they've lost their natural camouflage, they probably never last long in their wild state. But Probably they're born more frequently than what most people imagine. This one I've had since it was about a foot long and about as thick as a pencil. It's now 4'3", and you can see the thickness of it. So in its wild state it would probably never ever have grown to this size.
That's a pretty fast growth rate. Does it eat a lot of food here?
Yes, the growth rate has been a little bit faster than what it would have been in its wild state on account of the fact that it's had VIP treatment here at the park.
I imagine so. Should be a world first then, Ned.
Well, to my knowledge it is, yes. I've never heard of another albino tiger snake anywhere in the world. Well, Australia is the only place with tiger snakes.
The pink eyes are more obvious on the small albino tiger snake, which is kept in a separate enclosure. Barry hopes this one is a female, but it's too small to accurately sex at this stage of development. If it grows as fast as the large albino snake and adapts readily to the environment of its enclosure, Barry could be breeding them within 2 years. Some people have suggested that the albino snakes could be from the same parents, but this seems unlikely, as they were caught 250 kilometres apart. The fast growth rate seems to be due to the fact that the snake will eat almost any time and frequently takes 4 or 5 mice per meal. Searching for the head, the albino snake seems to use its heat-sensing tongue to check out the dead mouse. All snakes swallow their victims head first, as the feet, claws and fur all flow back from the nose, enabling the snake to devour it without the mouse becoming stuck in the neck. The flesh, bones and fur are all digested by the snake's incredible stomach. Considering the size of the mouse in relation to the snake, this eating process is fairly quick. It has to be, for in the wild, this is the time when the snake is most vulnerable to enemies. The tiger snake's only defence is its venom, and until the gruesome meal is swallowed, it's unable to use it. Almost over, it's interesting to speculate how many mice were needed for this fellow to reach his present size. The tiger snake is among the world's most deadly snakes. A good bite from one this size has the capability of killing 29 adult human beings. If close-up study of snakes is not what the visitor is looking for, then a quick step outside into the surroundings of the park offers a pleasant alternative. Most people who come here, though, come to see the albino snake and compare it with the normal tiger snake, and also the milking of venom. But first, Barry shows us the colouring of a normal tiger snake.
Well, it's virtually impossible to identify tiger snakes by colour alone, particularly in this area here we have such a tremendous variation in the colour of tiger snakes. Some tigers in this area are banded, which is the normal run of tiger snakes. We also have quite a lot of tiger snakes in this area that have no bands or stripes on them whatsoever. It makes it very difficult for the average person to identify them. The one I'm holding at the moment is a typical tiger snake from this area. I think the bands are quite visible on that one. It's not very difficult to milk a snake. All you do is get the snake to bite on the rubber diaphragm stretched across the glass beaker. The fangs penetrate the beaker and the venom trickles down inside the jar. We'll milk this one just to show you what we mean. It's a tiger snake I'm holding. We're getting to bite on the rubber diaphragm, and there's the venom running down inside the beaker now. And that's an average milking from a tiger snake. approximately 35 milligrams of dried venom. That's an average milking from a tiger. The fangs of the snake are situated in the front of the upper jaw. They're sheathed like a cat's claw. When the snake bites, these fangs come out of the sheath and penetrate whatever it has bitten.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Dart, for asking us about the albino tiger snake. Certainly one of the most fascinating reptiles I've ever seen. If you come to the Oasis Reptile Park yourself, there's plenty more here to see, including a few goannas.
Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leyland brothers. Whatever it is that you want to see, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. No matter whatever that happens to be, ask the Leyland brothers.